Welcome, my allies from all around, to another episode of One Build a Day. I am Frontline, and in today's episode we are going to be going over 5 builds that I have built over the past week. Now you may be wondering, why is it 5? There's 7 days in a week. And it's because my realms, for some reason, decided to kind of crash on me, and like my backup world was an old version, so I didn't really want to work off of an old version. So for the first 2 days of February, I didn't do anything, and this build behind me here is actually built on the 3rd of February, and then I was able to do a build a day since then. But because of this, I think that it would be fun to do, well, multiple things, first of all. I need your suggestions for builds for all of February, because for all of February, I'm doing Frozen-themed builds. Things have to do with ice, things that have to do with, things that are frozen, things that have to do with snow, you name it, that kind of stuff. I want to know what you want me to build, and leave that as a comment below. The other thing is, what should I do whenever I miss a day? Because I missed 2 days, and they weren't all my fault, they were slightly my fault, but yeah, we need to figure out a way that I can actually get slightly punished for not being able to do my fair share of builds, since so far I've actually missed 4 days altogether. I've missed 2 from the original stuff that was over there, which was the random builds and all that. I've missed 2 days in between this build here. So yeah, be sure to let me know what you want me to do about that. But let's get into this, shall we? So right here is day 14 of Frozen Cave. This is the block palette that I decided to go with. Very much like a cave. Really only stone is the cave block. And I tried to incorporate like different other items to be able to make it a little bit more Frozen themed. Inside it's like you can... if you imagine like it's blizzard outside, like it's just snowing all out, it's like the snow kind of blows into this cave. Some places like the snow isn't really covering on like high bits and all that, but eventually works its way into here. Doesn't cover everything, especially in the back. In the back it doesn't really have that much snow in here. But yeah, then we have like all these kinds of stalagmites and tights, and I think that this one turned out pretty alright, especially since I really like the salmon down here that lead into, what's supposed to be like an opening for like an underground river kind of thing that leads into a lake, but honestly it just kind of cuts off here if you want me to ruin the immersion for you. But yeah, lots of different cool stuff there, frozen little lake bed in here that does have a hole in it, just in case anyone did want to come into the place and be able to fish from it. But yeah, for this next build, it's going to be a frozen bridge, and you might have seen like different like parts of it, but I'm actually going to cut to a clip in which I started building this thing and showed off my process of how I was going to do this. So today is day number 15, I believe, and I'm still having issues with signs, which is a little bit unfortunate. On the Nintendo Switch, I can make the signs not censor the word day for some reason, but yeah, that's beside the point. We're trying to build a frozen bridge, and over here I've actually laid out what it's like in Craftway, because I had a basic concept in a world, but I actually kind of want to create like block for block over here, in which the bridge is right here, extends for 22 blocks, and ends up being 1 block higher on this side. So it's not going to be a symmetrical bridge, it's going to be an almost symmetrical bridge. So that's pretty much like the process I have to go through, figure out actually what the block palette is, and since I know it's going to be a survival build and not a creative build, I also need to take into account the fact that it needs to be things I can gather easily. So we've got packed ice. I might also make out of snow. And I think another good complementary block would be cyan concrete. I know that glass is a good accent to be able to have. I think I might have extra cyan stained glass. I don't know. I'm accidentally pressed the wrong button there. But I'm going to grab that anyway, cyan. There we go. And be able to get rid of those so I don't get too confused. I normally try and do the block palette before I actually start building. Like sometimes I end up like modifying the block palette as I go along, but I try to do the block palette beforehand to organize things. So if you're wondering like what order do I do things in, that's normally what. And I like to also try and make this as symmetrical as I can. I don't know, I'm weird. So there we go with that. I also kind of want another block to be able to work with to finish up the palette. But I think I'm just going to have to start building and then decide which one I'm going to do. Oh, I think I know actually what I'm going to do. Because it's a bridge, it needs to be built in survival, I'm going to use a quartz slab. And I may be thinking, why don't I just use snow layers like I did over here in like this staircase for this build? It's because for some reason in Bedrock, I think it's a bug, but you can't actually get snow layers in survival mode. Like for some bizarre reason, they kind of made it so you can't really do that. So we're going to go ahead, have the slope go up quite steep-ish here. I could also make it so that there's stairs for like the quartz, but I think I'm just going to kind of leave it like this. So I think that the best thing to do is have like these on the side. What should I do for the ice though? Because there does need to be ice. Perhaps the ice can be like the support beams that stick out of the water. That doesn't make sense. We're swapping this. So we're going to try and swap this. It's like I try and make it kind of like make sense as well. Like as much as I could go ahead and try Minecraft logic and have things like go all over the place and all the time. I think they would make more sense that it's like, oh, they build out of this, support it with a stronger block like concrete, because ice is kind of fragile and can melt away. So that should only be used as the railings, because safety sucks. I guess you could say that. But yeah, that's kind of my process. I'm going to continue on building this. I might do progress updates. I might just show you the final product now. But nonetheless, yeah, I'm going to continue doing this and catch back up later on in this episode of One Build a Day. So there you go. That was how I started the build. It's actually the only thing I was able to record with all of these builds. Normally, like One Build a Day is probably going to be done on the road. The fact that I can play on my Switch wherever I am, and it only takes like 30 to 45 minutes to be able to create a build. That's kind of how the series was designed to be made. So I won't always record these kinds of clips for you, but I'll try to do as many as I can incorporate into these episodes. So anyway, day 15, Frozen Bridge. This is a very basic block palette. From here on out, the block palettes do become quite basic, like with only maybe 5 or so blocks. But I think that even with this small selection, it ends up being a very powerful combination. So with this one, it was interesting. I did get a little bit of feedback in that the cyan probably could have been like replaced with light blue to be able to make it a little bit more consistent. I also had suggestions to be able to incorporate a darker color into it, but overall I still think that this build ended up turning out all right, and definitely something that I could improve on later. And I did take some of the advice that I had earlier and applied it to a future build, but you have to see that in just a little bit here. So over here is day 16, a Spacious Igloo. It was originally just going to be normal igloo, but I like it when it's 2 words because it goes over those 2 lines, and that's the pattern that I've done up until now. So I added the word spacious to make it a little bit more like fit that pattern. And the igloo outside I kind of like, but I wish that like snow bricks were a thing in the game, because that would make this look a lot more realistic. This was all done freehand, by the way. I didn't actually create like a sphere generator or anything to be able to look at this. So I think that just like looking at the shape and knowing that it's freehand, I think that it turned out quite all right. The inside, I didn't know what to do with. The inside, I think it is all right for like an igloo, but it's so big that I just didn't know what to do with it. I think that like the what are those called? The end rods ended up working out all right with it. But the only thing that I could really think of doing here was just have a lot of storage and have a nice little fire in the middle that you can go ahead and cozy right up to. And I even added a little bit of like, oh, this ice here is actually slightly melting since it's closer to the fire. Over here it's more packed together and less see-through. Over here you can kind of see through it more because it's starting to melt. But yeah, it's fine. It probably could definitely almost assuredly be improved upon, and I just walked into the fire. But I still think that it kind of turned out all right. Let me know what you think in the comments. Over here is day 17, the frozen hallway. This is the one where I did incorporate the darker block into it, and it's the cyan terracotta, which you may be wondering, wait a minute, that's not cyan. And you'd be, well, kind of correct. It is cyan, but in fact, terracotta is really terrible in looking the color that it's supposed to be. So cyan terracotta ends up kind of looking like this grayish like pattern to it. And then the rest are kind of normal standard stuff. So like I said, it's like incorporating the darker blocks over here. I think that that really like ends up making this hallway look a lot nicer. Like if I would have just used like cyan concrete or something, it would have been all right. But this definitely adds like a little bit to it. Originally, I was thinking of having these pillars just be like one across, like kind of like what I did in Aztec Labs and stuff. But I kind of was experimenting. I was thinking, well, one almost just doesn't look right. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a pillar for like how far apart to all of these like places are. And I kind of like how it turned out, where having the two wide ones ended up making this hallway look a lot nicer and just kind of spread out the area a lot more. And it is mirrored from the top and bottom. I did end up building it from scratch. I actually tried to use commands on this one, but I realized I was on a Nintendo Switch, and it's not that you can't plug in a keyboard to the Nintendo Switch dock. It's just that my keyboard's already plugged into my Xbox, so I was like, I don't want to move it. My setup has so many cords already that I have to deal with that it was just too much effort. So yeah, I just built this whole entire thing block by block, and how I did it was right here, like in between these two blocks is where the mirror starts. I think that that makes more sense logically, that you're looking at the mirror like from the top here, and then immediately downward it goes into it. So instead of being all like, oh, this is like a middle block and then I'm going to mirror the other side, it just immediately like cuts to it, so that if there is one block of snow here that's going, one block of snow is going to be underneath, then it goes to the ice and all that and so on. So yeah, I think that that one actually turned out quite all right. Do let me know what you guys think. But then we came to the last build here, and I realized that I never actually cleared my inventory from when I was building this. I built this just now. So yeah, right here is a cryovolcano for day 18. And I was looking up ideas of what frozen builds to build. Because not very many people have been suggesting stuff, so I've been trying to research myself to figure out what kinds of things I could do. And this one caught my eye because cryovolcanoes aren't found on Earth, but they are found like extraterrestrially, and they basically like are from the crust of a planet or moon or whatever it ends up being. It has like this ice that, although it is frozen, it's hotter than the area surrounding it, so it ends up erupting outward, having this like cool ice around it, that if you happen to stand next to it, you would, instead of being like burned like you would or in a normal volcano that comes like from magma in the mantle, you would instead be like frozen into a block of ice as this solidifies, because whenever this erupts, it creates an ice layer forming around it eventually. But this is more like the first stage. This is like the stage in which it actually is in the act of erupting. I feel like it probably could have done with a little bit more particles, but I think that using the different color glass ended up making it definitely have that look of explosion outward from the mound there. And the mounds normally aren't that big either. They actually don't even last that long out in the wild either. They normally last for like I actually forget the numbers, but they last for a while and then they just flatten out. So they never really get to the size of mountains. They're more like hills is what they are. So yeah, that's the cryovolcano. And yeah, that's pretty much like all the 5 builds that I did for this area. As you can see, I didn't put as much time into being able to build out the road as I did over there. I think I might do that on a live stream, since I just don't really have that much time to dedicate to being able to decorate it at the moment. So during a live stream, I'll be able to decorate a nice little path that connects all these things together and make it all look nice. But anyway, I would promise that this video will go on forever, but that would be a lie. Subscribe to the channel to be able to check out more of the One Build a Day series, as well as the other series I'm doing on this channel at the moment. Be sure to let me know what kinds of frozen builds you want me to do in the future, because I will be doing that for the entire month of February. And be sure to let me know exactly what kinds of things I can do to be able to punish myself for missing the 4 days that I've already done, whether that be like cumulative, as if like at the end of the series of the 365 days I do, I accumulate them all my punishments all in one go, or either cumulative to 1 month, maybe like I go ahead and just do it every episode, who knows. But yeah, so I will stop rambling now. This has been Frontline, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye.